Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show, Your Decision 2018. Today we're going to do a two-part series reviewing the entire Colorado statewide ballot. My first guest joining me today is Dick Wadhams, the former chairman of the state Republican Party, among other things, campaign manager for presidential candidates, gubernatorial candidates, Senate candidates, almost all of whom won.
Not every one of them.
Yeah. But more importantly, Dick, I don't know if you remember, you were the first guest on the first television show I ever did.
I do remember, and it was a lot of fun.
With Scott Chase, and that was Wayne Allard versus Tom Strickland, for those who were alive back then. And Michelle Ling, the CEO of Novitas, and of course, Republican operative, and a former guest on the program as well.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for being here. And Marie Logston, who is the Chief of Strategy and Communications for, of course, Governor John Hickenlooper. Marie, thanks for being here. And finally, another veteran of the program, Alan Salazar, Chief of Staff for Mayor Michael Hancock, and of course, leader of many campaigns involved with everyone from Mark Udall and Roy Romer to Tim Wirth and Hillary Clinton and whom I know I'm missing several, but Alan,
we can stop there.
All right, good enough. Okay, so let's talk about the ballot. Of course, it's depending on your jurisdiction, this can be a lengthy ballot. Have any of you? I'm curious. Have any of you voted yet?
Not yet.
I've opened mine, but
I'm still working on it.
6 pages long. Right.
It's you're going to do it this week.
I did this one.
Oh, you already did. All right, so you're ahead of the game. Okay, well, at the top of everybody's ballot are the federal races. There's no U.S. Senate race. Everyone, of course, has a congressional race. I'm going to skip most of them. I'll skip the first and second. I'll skip the fourth and fifth and seventh. I don't think any of those are competitive. But how about the third congressional district? Alan, I'm going to start with you. What's your take on the third race with, of course, Bush versus Tipton?
I think it could be closer than people expect. I do think there's a blue wave taking place in Colorado, not to be overconfident about that. But I think if I were a Republican, and I'm not, but Republicans running this year have two opponents, not only the one that they're running against on the ballot, but Donald Trump. And I think that factor is important in the 6th congressional district. You see it played out in the 3rd as well.
Do you think, Michelle, Diane has much of a chance against Scott in the 3rd?
If Diane Mitzbush were actually a moderate candidate, maybe with Ellen Salazar's blue wave, but she's not. She's pretty far left. I think what's really interesting about a lot of these races, there may be a blue wave happening. However, Democrats are actually experiencing their own sort of Tea Party movement, right, where people are running far to the left, Bernie Sanders style. And I think Diane Mitzbush is part of that. I think it might be closer than people think, but I think Tipton will eke it out.
All right, she needs a blue tsunami. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that.
All right, I don't know if this blue wave thing's really happening to a great extent in Colorado. Do you think it's happening, Dick?
Well, I think President Trump is definitely upside down in Colorado. There's no doubt about that. I do think that it will be another split decision overall, like Colorado elections go. We have a lot of ticket splitters in Colorado. Voters are discerning when they go down a big ballot like this. In the 3rd district, I think it would be very winnable for Democrats if Scott Tipton was not running for re-election. As my friends all know, the 3rd district has been in Democratic hands in the past. John Salazar, I mean, we can go back to Ray Kagosic and Ben Campbell, and so it's not a rock-hard Republican district. But Scott's a great incumbent, and he'll win.
All right, Marie, I'm going to jump to the 6th congressional district. Clearly a very competitive district.
Absolutely.
Mike Kaufman, the Republican incumbent, Jason Crow, the Democratic challenger. What's your take on that race?
I think Kaufman is vulnerable. I think Crow's going to eke that one out. I think the amount of money being spent on that race is fascinating. The attention nationally makes it hot and interesting. So to the extent that a blue wave exists, I think this is one of those races where Crow has an advantage.
Okay, let's talk about the governor's race. You've got, of course, Jared Polis on the Democratic side, Walker Stapleton on the Republican side. Marie, I'm going to start with you. What's your take on that race, and how do you see it ending up?
Yeah, I think Jared pulls it off. I think that somewhere between 4 and 7 points. I tend to be a little more conservative there. I think the blue wave has to be created by the sort of field campaign, the machine, and people have to be really thrilled about it. I think in Colorado, traditionally, as a purple state with a third Democrat, a third independent, and a third Republican, you'd imagine some of these ballot splitting sort of phenomenons happening. In this environment, I do think the referendum on Trump, especially among suburban women and among Latinos demographically in Colorado, means we shift sort of a bigger swing. And at the top of the ticket, I think we got it.
All right, Alan, what's your take? What can you add to that?
I think that Jared Polis is a stronger, better candidate, frankly. I've seen both Walker Stapleton and Jared in events. Jared works the room. I don't frankly think Walker is as good a candidate. So not only do you have the blue wave, not only do you have a Donald Trump effect, not only do you have some demographic changes in Colorado, but Jared's just a better candidate. My friend Dick Wadhams called him Stumbleton in the primary, and I think that he still hasn't really recovered from that moniker.
You're talking about Walker. Yeah. Okay, I was Walker Stumbleton. Okay, I missed that one, Dick. Tell me more about that.
Well, actually, somebody else called him that, but I wouldn't disagree with probably the intent of the characterization that somebody made of Walker. You know, Aaron, I can't look at this race and not think about two things. Number one, we've only had one Republican governor elected in the past 48 years, and Bill Owens.
Right. And didn't you run that campaign?
Well, I did, but I got to tell you, I keep thinking about that Owens race because I think, by and large, to be honest, I think Democrats have fielded, in many cases, better candidates and definitely run better campaigns, which is why the political graveyard is littered with the bodies of failed Republican gubernatorial campaigns. And I have told my Republican friends for years, study Bill Owens. Owens, he defined an agenda early on in his campaign: cut taxes, fix roads, and reform education. And he had clear policy positions behind all those things. And it was an agenda that could win a primary, but also appeal, not repel, unaffiliated voters. And I have watched Republican after Republican after Republican, before Owens and after Owens, not do that very fundamental strategic and tactical, those kinds of decisions. And so, yeah, I agree. I think Polis is probably going to win. I probably am not as enthusiastic about him as a candidate as my friend Alan. But on the other hand, and Walker is a good guy, but I have been befuddled by his campaign's inability to define an agenda that could run in contrast to what I think is the most liberal, far-left gubernatorial candidate in Colorado history. So, and I think he'll govern that way, too.
All right, so taking off on that point, and Michelle, I'd be interested in your take as well. Have Republicans squandered an opportunity based on that characterization of Jared by Dick?
You know, maybe, but I will say I agree with Dick entirely. You know, usually I'm the Republican, I'm a fairly moderate Republican, and usually I'm thinking, oh gosh, I'm not sure our candidate will appeal to a more moderate purple Colorado. And in this case, I'm like, wow, our candidate's the moderate candidate compared to Jared, who is quite far left. I think that if voters actually, you know, look at their policy positions side by side, the majority of voters actually agree with Walker Stapleton.
So who would have been a great candidate? Who would have been a great candidate for governor this year? Give me a couple examples.
Bill Owens would have been a good candidate. I think the problem is, I agree with Dick, the problem is I don't think Bill Owens could get a Republican nomination now. I think the Republican Party doesn't have enough moderates driving who gets the nomination. And Walker, I think, during the primary, embraced Tom Tancredo. He embraced Donald Trump in ways that I think are haunting him now. I don't really agree that Jared is so far left. I think actually he's an entrepreneur, he's a businessman, he has supported free trade. I also think he inherits a very strong economy, and John Hickenlooper leaves the state in a good place. So voters are feeling good about John Hickenlooper, and they're feeling good about the Democratic candidate.
Yeah, I mean, that characterization, I think, Michelle, is really interesting because, you know, Polis is someone, for example, who's been a huge supporter of charter schools. I know like some of the union folks haven't been excited about him. He's created schools. He's done a lot of things that are kind of just out of the box or not easy to stereotype. So kind of
I
like
agree, Aaron, but I got to tell you, and I think Walker has done a good job in the debates trying to point this out, but I think the race was probably too far gone for him to get back into it. But pointing out that these lavish, huge programs, free pre-K, universal health care, all these that really would go way beyond anything we saw from Governor Hickenlooper. I think Hickenlooper has by and large been a very good governor, and but he never ventured into that fringe territory. I honestly think that Jared Polis is a very ideological person and will pursue that agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the initiatives later on, but I think, as Joey Bunch wrote on Colorado Politics, if the Democrats sweep the table on the elected positions and a bunch of these things pass, tax increases and the ban on fracking, it ain't going to be fun to be a Democrat in 2020 because this state's really going to suffer.
All right, well, we'll see. Okay, you think Polis is going to win? By how much?
He's probably going to slide. I agree, probably 5 points. I think which will mean it was winnable. To win by 5, where Trump is so unpopular, there is a blue wave of some consequence. That kind of a narrow win after he spent $40 million or whatever it's going to be. How could he not have won? But should have won by more.
Michelle.
I think that Walker Stapleton's going to get outspent massively. I think it's going to be tough to overcome that. But maybe by a few points.
A few points.
Maybe 5 points. But given how much Jared Polis has spent, he should be winning by like 10, 20 points. I mean, he's massively outspending.
Well, he's massively outspending Walker's campaign. But he's not massively outbeing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of other Republicans.
Even with the RGA, Aaron, it's still.
Well, they're probably pulling out money now. They're probably pulling out. But I mean, there's been a lot of spending against him. Marie.
There has. Republican Governors Association and other soft side organizations coming after Jared. It's a decent amount of money. I don't think it quite matches what's been spent on the other side, and I also think the money is leaving from what we're seeing in the field.
Yeah, a lot of entities are pulling money. Democrats are pulling money from certain campaigns. Republicans too, nationwide. All right, I think it's going to be closer than you all think. I think it's going to be like 3 points. That's my prediction. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with our august panel in just a moment.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
The Rex Howell Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rex Howell Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
Just make journalism great again.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. This is part 1 of our special 2-part series reviewing the Colorado ballot. Okay, so we're going to go through a few races. Secretary of State, Marie, I'm going to start with you. Tell me your take on that race. Of course, Jenna Griswold, the Democratic nominee, challenging the incumbent, Wayne Williams.
Yeah, I think that this is an area where voters are actually going to go with the incumbent. I think the Republican is going to eke this one out. I think Wayne has a record nationally for having Colorado's access to voting and also the cybersecurity piece of the election process has seen some national attention, has been replicated around. I think Jenna is a little bit unknown for somebody who's had such a large presence in the state. I think this is a race where we see a split ticket.
All right, what do you think, Dick? What's your take on
I
that?
think anybody smart enough to hire Lynn Bartles as their communication person is going to win. No, I honestly, I think Wayne has been a very bipartisan Secretary of State. A lot of Democratic county clerks have supported him, or supporting him, and I think he's been a great Secretary of State.
All right, so what's your prediction? How big a win is he going to have?
Well, it won't be 20 points because he's a
How many
Republican.
points? How many points will it be?
Oh, he'll probably win by 5 or something like
Just-
that. Or maybe
just 5?
Yeah, listen, it's tough being a Republican.
Marie, what was your number?
Oh, I don't know. I hate to math out loud on this one. 10. I don't know.
All right, 10. Wow. And okay, Michelle, you get to predict next. Give me your number and then tell me why.
I think first my number, I'll go with Dick. It's a tough election for Republicans this year, but Wayne Williams has really done a fabulous job. Lynn Bartles has really done a fabulous job. And I think what's been really impressive about Wayne is his ability to, as Dick alluded to, really garner support, bipartisan support. We've got Democrats coming out in favor of him as well as Republicans.
All right, Alan, I'm going to ask you a quick answer so we can get to some other candidates and issues.
Close. If it's a blue wave, it's Jenna. But I agree with the panel that Wayne has worked really hard and is one of those Republicans that Democrats feel comfortable voting for.
All right, give me a number.
2.
Okay, wow, all right, that's interesting. I think it'll be very close. I think Jenna's run a really good race. I've been impressed with her money raising and all that. But Wayne, I think Wayne's going to be tough to beat. All right, treasurer, you have an open seat, Brian Watson, the Republican, Dave Young, the Democrat. Give me a quick one-sentence take. Marie, I'm going to start with you again.
I appreciate that. I think the Democrat will win. I think this is a part of one of the races that people have less information about. So just in terms of, I think, top of the ticket, I think he falls in line there. Dave Young.
Really? Okay. Alan?
Dave, he's an experienced legislator. People like him. He's a good candidate. He'll win.
All right. Michelle?
I'm going with Watson. Not just because I'm a Republican. I think there are some concerns about Dave Young sort of fox guarding the hen house in terms of para. We just went through a whole reform process with that. Dave has sided with teachers unions on some issues in the past. I'm going to go with Watson. Slimmer margin, but I think he'll eke it out.
Like what? How many points?
I don't know. Maybe like 2.
Oh, close.
Maybe
All right.
less. I don't
Dick,
know.
your quick take.
I love Brian Watson, but I agree. I think this is a race that will be very sensitive to what's going on above. So it's going to be tough.
All right. I actually think, if you look at spending, Brian has invested a lot in his race, and I think that could make a difference. I think this is going to be potentially a couple points in this race. All right. Treasurer, we've covered. Last but not least, we have a pretty exciting race for Attorney General. Dick, what's your take on Phil Weiser, the Democrat, versus George Brauchler, the Republican?
Close. I think Brauchler will win. The last time Colorado voted for the same party for governor and U.S. Senator, 1978, 40 years ago, Dick Lamb and J.D. McFarland. Every year since then, we've elected either a Democratic governor or a Republican AG or vice versa, and including when Owens was governor. I think that Brauchler is a better candidate. I think he's doing a great job. He's got a lot of presence. I just think that voters are going to vote for Polis if he wins, and they're going to say, he is a little liberal. I think I want a Republican AG for some oversight over this guy.
All right. Your take, I assume Brauchler.
I think Brauchler has done a really good job of framing Phil Weiser's not having the right experience for the job. I think Brauchler ekes it out.
All right. Marie?
Well, I think Weiser wins. I don't think by much, but I do think he pulls it off. And I think this one is in a regular Colorado year. I agree with Dick's analysis. I think this is not a regular Colorado year. I think there's a referendum on Trump happening in this race based on Weiser's experience and the way this race has been framed.
All right, my prediction is that this is not going to be as big a referendum on Trump as people think, but I could be wrong. I think I've maybe even been wrong before, but none of you would know that. Alan?
I agree with Marie. Phil is a very energetic candidate. I think he's done he's run a strong campaign. I also think people need to understand, and voters are smart in Colorado, the Attorney General is not the district attorney of the state.
Right.
It's not about prosecuting people. The Attorney General really is a policy-oriented position. And Phil will benefit from that experience. He's the guy that will protect us from the Trump administration.
Yeah, and that's the problem, I think, Alan, because I think he's been running as just, I'm going to go to court and beat up on the Trump administration, and that's his whole agenda. And I think that's one of his weaknesses. He hasn't talked about if George talks too much about being a DA, he talks too much about how he's going to try to destroy Trump. I think that's his weakness.
Well, I think it cuts both ways,
Yeah.
but
All right, well, we'll see. I got to tell you, I think there's been one of the huge differences are the volume of attack ads against Weiser. And I think they have the potential to be very, very effective. I think they've been very well done. They may be misleading from your perspective because they're mainly talking about his lack of prosecutorial experience, which probably really isn't that important. The AG is not in court. But I don't think most voters know that. So I disagree with you, Alan. I don't think most voters really know that job. And so I think that could end up really making a difference. Okay, we're going to take our last break for part one. We'll be back with our panel in just a moment to wrap up with maybe some amendments.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbertv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching.
Join me and watch The Aaron Harber Show.
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 I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch The Aaron Harber Show and keep hope alive.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. This is our final segment in part one of our special two-part series reviewing the statewide Colorado ballot. Okay, I know a race that you all have spent a lot of attention on is the at-large seat for University of Colorado Regent. Can any of you name the candidates? I know you can, Dick.
Yeah, I'm helping him. But
you're helping Ken Montero.
Yeah, Ken Montero. Great guy, native of Pueblo, went off, got a scholarship to the University of Colorado, had a very successful business career, has retired and returned to Colorado.
Okay, the ad's over
and
now.
He's really a good guy. Anyway, but the Regents race is so down ballot. There are so many, you can't raise any money for it.
It's actually, positionally, it's not that far down the ballot.
Well, I understand, but I mean, in terms of the public visibility of the race, yes. I will say this: it is there's probably no way Republicans will lose control of the CU Board of Regents as they gather next year to vote for a replacement to Bruce Benson. But this race is still important because the Board of Regents is a real. It's a very critical board in the state.
I know that you can afford to do daily polling in this race.
Yes, our tracking, yes.
And what does it look like?
Oh, give me a break. I have no idea. If there was a race that was kind of at the whims of what's going on up here, this is it. And I've warned Ken about that. I said, Ken, you are a great candidate. I love you to death, but you know what? We're just going to have to sit here and hopefully.
it's a good barometer of where the state is. And as a CU alum, I care a lot about Regents, and Leslie Smith is going to be the Regent at large for sure.
All right, interesting. Okay, and Leslie seems to have run a fairly visible race, but these are races that have almost. What's the budget for Ken's race? 100,000.
Yeah, we've been able to raise 100.
Okay, well, Jared spends that in a day. So, are there any other contests in terms of people that really intrigue you? Because I want to wrap up on the people front real quickly.
Well, Joe Neguse. It's not going to be a
Joe Neguse
serious
in the
race,
second
but Joe
congressional
Neguse going to Congress is going to be he's going to be a rock star. He's going to be somebody to watch, and I think he'll be a national player.
So that intrigues me. I live in the 2nd Congressional District. He's a great candidate. Why? And it seems that and Dick and Michelle, I'm really interested. Seems when there have been some really good Republican candidates. George Ling was one, for example, who came without any real Republican financial support, came close to winning that district. Why don't Republicans make an effort in the 2nd Congressional District? What's going on with you guys?
I mean, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We think that it's not winnable, so then it's hard to get great staff, it's hard to get good fundraising, it's hard to convince people back in D.C. that they should pay attention to this race. Part of it too, and maybe this is a misstep, part of it too is, people are like, oh, well, Jared Polis is so rich, like, we come close and he throws $10 million in it and that's it. That's not the case here. Joe Neguse is a good candidate, but I think it's just one of these self-fulfilling prophecies.
All right, fair enough. One of the things that people get to do, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to talk about it, is people get to vote to retain Colorado State Supreme Court justices, Colorado Court of Appeal judges, and then locally their own district court and other judges as well. I'd just be interested quickly, I know we only have a couple minutes left, on your take of this process, because it seems to me that most voters have never heard of any of these people on the ballot. So give me your take on that.
It's a little bit of an anachronism. It's like a democratic check on judges that might, rise to the occasion to be noticed and have enough notoriety that voters would say, hey, we want you out of there. I'm a geek on this stuff, so I actually look at the ratings and know a number of people that the governor appointed.
So Richard Gabriel is up for retention on the Colorado Supreme Court.
I was happy to fill in the bubble to retain him. Same with Don Quick and others. I recognize most voters probably don't do that, and so maybe we should look at a different way of adjusting. But I kind of like the fact that there's a democratic check on judges that kind of go rogue and are out of control.
When was the last time we booted a judge?
That's a great question. I'm going to look
Were
to
you
Dick for
born
that.
yet?
I probably was.
Wasn't a Denver district court, honestly, about 10 years ago, some erratic behavior on the bench?
There might have been one, Dick. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
And maybe it's our fault, and when I say our, the press, that maybe we need to make a better effort to inform people of what's going on. I know when I had Justice Sandra Day O'Connor on the show, she really thought the Colorado system was a great system, and what she was against and still is against is having judges elected to the position.
Which we used to do.
Right.
Until the 1960s.
Right, we changed when we were in diapers. So I mean, I think we do have a great system, but I don't think most voters know what's going on. And Marie, what do you?
I would just say there are some good resource guides out there. So as Alan referenced, there are places to look at their ratings and do the research. I think this is the place where, I get out my computer and have to Google these because they aren't immediately known as I'm filling out my ballot, and I get a lot of questions about from friends. But
well, your diligence is commendable. I can't say I do quite that much. All right, last question. We only have a minute left. Amendment V, as in Victor, reduces the age from 25 to 21 for Colorado citizens to be members of the Colorado General Assembly. Is this a good idea? Yes or no? And is it going to pass?
I agree with Bob Schaefer. I've known a lot of 50-year-old imbeciles in the legislature, so I think 21 is fine.
Dick would lower it to 16 if he had the choice. Okay, will it pass?
I think it will.
All right. Yeah. Michelle?
It might pass. I prefer my legislators to at least have the potential to have some life experience. I'd probably vote no.
I prefer my legislators to be old enough to drink, so 21's okay with me. But Marie?
Yeah, I think it'll pass. I think it's good. I worked in youth vote for a long time. I think having younger candidates may help people relate to them and start talking about issues young people care about, and that's a part of the electorate I think is ignored regularly and also disengages regularly, so could be helpful in that way.
Will it pass?
Yeah.
I agree.
You get the last word.
Totally agree.
On everything?
Well, I agree with Dick. And
going to 16 years old with Dick?
No, I think that probably if you're old enough to drink hard liquor and you're old enough to fight for the country and you're old enough to make adult decisions, you ought to be old enough to represent people and let voters decide whether somebody has the experience. I agree with Dick. Just because you're in your 50s or 60s doesn't mean you've got wisdom. And there are some young people who I think would be attracted to office, and we ought to encourage it.
Well, if you're setting criteria being mature enough to drink and mature enough to vote, maybe the age should be 30. But that's all the time we have today. Don't forget to watch part 2. This is the end of part 1. I want to thank Dick and Michelle and Marie and Alan for joining me. Make sure you do watch part 2. I'm Aaron Harber. See you next time.
Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.